welcome back to episode 3 of the podcast. So just a bit of a recap. We have 2 episodes out, one where we talk about who we are and why we do what we do, and then the second one, which was very interesting and we had some conversations about that, was our time in education as a learner. So school time and things like that. So today we're going to look at working in education because that is a lot of our background, like we said. So I'm going to kick off with this and I'm going to say, so as I've said in the first episode, I have worked in more so early years and then later on going into schools. So what I did was I actually started, so the first time that I started, I used to be a hairdresser. So I went to college and I did hairdressing and then I became a mum. So I was 19 when I had my first and I remember I was working at hairdressers and my sister worked in a nursery and I needed childcare. So she said, why don't you bring her to my nursery? And I didn't want to put her in a nursery. Not for any reason, I just didn't want to. I wanted her to be with a family member or at home or whatever it was. And my sister said, well, I work there, so I'll be with her. She'll actually be in my room. So why don't you bring her? So I said, right, okay. So I took her to nursery. And then what I found is I started staying. So I would be obviously with members of staff. I weren't allowed to just go around the nursery on my own. But I would just stay and play with some of the children, or I'd say, do you want me to help out? And I'd start spending my day off what I was meant to be getting everything done at the nursery, just helping out. And I really, really enjoyed it. And I think I started to then lose that interest, that passion in hairdressing, and I wanted to be with my child. So I ended up getting a job at the nursery, obviously going through the DBS checks and all of them different things. And that was the start of my nursery career. So I started working at the nursery and I started working at the after school club that they had, and I absolutely loved it. And I think part of that was because I was practically one of the children. I found them so much fun. Like one person would constantly say, I don't know how you work with children. It must be really difficult. And I didn't see it in that way. I saw it as every single day is different. Like you never get the same day. There's always something that happens.
Yeah, it doesn't drag, does it?
Yeah. So I started off in early years and then I worked my way up to management. And then I went and got a job in a school, and I had kind of like, at one point I had 3 different jobs. So I'd work in a nursery, then I'd work in a school, then I'd work in the holiday club. And in that time, that's when I started to support children who had ADHD and autism and things like that. So I would do lots of different roles, and then I went into doing some mentoring and befriending, which I've shared before. Now, one of the key stories for me that I'm going to talk about today was when I was working in nursery. So when I was working in nursery, I feel like I have this, and I think this is related to having ADHD. So I feel a lot of things. Like I feel when someone isn't right. I feel when there's something gone on. It's kind of like that. You know, where people say like, oh, you can cut the atmosphere with a knife. Like, you know, when it's that energy, isn't it? You know, when words have happened in a place or something's gone on, you can feel it. Well, that's a constant. And I think depending on who is listening, some people will say it's related to the nervous system. Some people will say it's hypervigilance and all of these different things. I see it as a superpower, especially as a therapist. So I remember going into a class, in one of the classes, it was in the 3 to 5s room. And I remember seeing a little boy that had just joined, and he was sat on a chair and he was really, really upset and he was just crying. And I kind of looked around and said, like, what's going on? Like, why is this little boy crying? And someone said he won't really talk to anybody. He doesn't speak. No one can speak the same language. Now, this little boy was Polish. We had bilingual staff in school, but nobody could speak Polish. And I looked at him and he was just so upset. And I said, right, can I be his key worker? Like, can I work with him? So I went over to him and I kind of said like, hi, and tried to use some hand gestures because I couldn't speak his language. And he was a little bit like, what is she doing? But also you could see that he wanted that connection, that communication as well. So I made it my mission, and this is something that I do every single time. I don't care how many children I've got in a class or in a room. If one of them or some of them don't feel safe or they're distressed, you bet I'm going to try and do something about it. It's just who I am. And I think when you're in this sector, you have to be that way as well. And if I'm sad,
Wrong job otherwise.
yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. I'm sorry to say it. If you are not that person and you're working with a young person, leave because you're in the wrong job. And for me, it was kind of like, right, I'm gonna make him feel welcome. I'm gonna make him feel like he belongs. So I went home and I started to Google Polish words. And I wasn't paid for this. Like if I hear that comment one more time, that's not what I'm paid to do. Or what didn't care about that. All I cared about was this child. So I went home and I wrote a long list of Polish words because hello, I'm gonna forget. And I took it in the next day and I was like, right. So I sat with him and I'm like saying these, I can't remember them now, but I'm saying these words and he's looking at me like, what is she saying? I probably got it wrong. And I'm like, yes. And he's like, no. I'm like, okay. So I'm trying to cross them off and I'm trying to communicate with him in the only way that I know possible. And that moment really changed everything else because not straight away, it took time, but he started to come to me. We started to build that rapport. When he'd come in the morning, he would come to me. If I wasn't there, you'd notice a difference. So I'd include other staff so that if I wasn't there, then, he felt safe. And over time, he really started to come out of his shell. And it got to the point where I'd come in and I'd say certain words and he started going, oh. And he'd look at me as if to say, what is she saying? And then he'd correct me. And we really built this rapport. And then I'd start bringing other children in and making games and making fun. And within a couple of weeks, months, he was fine. And he enjoyed his time. He wasn't coming in upset. It's that ripple effect, isn't it? So when that child felt safe and felt like he belonged, it helped all the other children because it wasn't one person to one child. When that child felt safe, everybody else wanted to be friends. They all wanted to play together. But then also the mum, because when she started, she was leaving her child in a place where she had to go to work. He was distressed. She was upset. He was upset. And it got to a point where that didn't happen anymore. So that ripple effect affected her as well. She was leaving him knowing he felt safe and happy. Yeah. And I could sit here and say, that's not my job. I could sit here and say, well, I don't speak Polish. I could sit here and say a million other reasons why I cannot do that thing. But what's that going to help? What's that going to solve? Absolutely nothing. Or I can change my interaction with a child, make them feel incredible, wanted, belonging, all of them different things, which then changes the trajectory of the whole day. And that's what I did. And I truly believe that every single person has the ability to do that. Like, I could have said, like, funding's an issue, or this is an issue, or all of them different things. And yeah, I was one person that tried to change it, but I did make that change. And I think that's missing in a lot of people. So that
It doesn't have to be this massively expensive, huge thing. Sometimes it's just time and effort.
Yeah.
And it's that simple, isn't it?
Yeah. I had a pen, Google, and my voice. That's it.
This is it.
And wanting to change.
This is it. I mean, I've worked in a nursery way back when. I've worked with physically disabled children and their families, and then obviously went into schools. I started off working with children that were basically on the brink of exclusion within mainstream, and trying to pull them back in a bit, try and ground them. And then I was quite good at it. Again, because I was just fun, I was relaxed, I didn't sweat the small stuff. And then I went into a behaviour unit school. So those that were either repeatedly excluded from a few schools or no school would have them would come to us. Sometimes they'd be dual schooled, so they'd still be on the register of their old school, but they could not cope. So they'd come to us and hopefully we could transition them back, giving them the tools they'd need and get to the bottom of what was happening. And there was one girl, she had been through hell. She was 7 years old and she'd been through hell. Nothing a child should ever, ever have to go to. And you kind of felt like, well, what chance did she have? Of course she's acting like this. Because obviously, when you're so young and awful things happen to you or you witness them, your body stores them as memories, those feelings. And something can happen that can trigger those memories, but it's not a visual memory like we would
Yeah.
remember things now. It's a bodily
Yeah.
sensation,
It can be a
and
smell, a touch, a sound, anything.
it puts us into fight or flight, and that then creates this escalation in behavior because we're either terrified and we're trying to fight for our lives, or we just want to get away, or we're trying to blend in and pretend nothing's happening, but that then withdraws us because we just don't want any attention. And this poor little girl, she wasn't the easiest child, and a lot of people would kind of spend a bit of time with her, and she was very, 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 very violent, very aggressive, and she knew where to go to hurt. And I think sometimes some staff would burn out from her because she was a constant and you couldn't leave her. And some staff would get the first proper punch from her. She used to like to bite. They'd they'd get hurt and they'd think, oh, that's enough for me. But even though she really hurt me quite a number of times, I still went back,
Yeah.
still went back, still went back. And when we had that connection and she talked to me, and all I had to do was look at her and go, come on. And she instantly relaxed because she knew I was predictable. She knew I was safe. Because they always say about children, oh, well, they shouldn't be hitting. Of course they shouldn't. We know that. But some children will hit an adult or other children to recognize if they're safe.
Yeah.
They want to gauge what your reaction's going to be. So if I hit you and you hit me back, you're not safe.
Yes.
You're just like everything I've ever experienced.
Yes.
Or if I hit you and you've had enough of me and wash your hands of me, then you're rejecting me like everybody else has rejected me. So I'm not going to put my time into you. But if you still keep turning up and you're consistent and you're predictable, you're safe.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what I throw at you, you're going to be there. I can be myself around you because it doesn't matter. You're still going to be there. You're still going to be the same person. And that is what I truly resonate with.
Yeah.
I love it because it's so simple. But then most people don't connect that. And that's why we're doing certain things and we're hurling verbal abuse at somebody, or we've thrown a drink at them, or with a chair, or we've hit, or whatever. They're testing you. And as long as you show up appropriately, that will eventually reduce.
Yeah.
And you'll be able to replace that with other behaviors that are more therapeutic, that help them regulate, that help them understand what's going on, so that next time and next time and next time we're getting to where we need to be.
Yeah. And it's you're training the nervous system. You're basically training the nervous system because it doesn't feel safe, and you're giving it then new tools. And what you've just said is, again, what so many people get wrong, because they believe, I think, again, after looking at some comments that I get on TikTok and things like that, there is this misconception that people think that we think a child who is neurodivergent is just allowed to do what they want, and they're allowed to hit people, and they're allowed to just get on with it, and you have to leave them. That isn't the case. What we're saying is, in that moment, they are fighting for their life, how it feels. And in that moment, the last thing they need is you telling them off and shouting at them and telling them not to do something. We correct the behavior when they've regulated. That's the difference. It doesn't mean that we allow people to go and hit whoever they want. That isn't the case.
Correction doesn't need that they lose the break times for a week.
No,
they
not
have
at
this.
all.
It can be that we write a letter and reflect, we repair, we restore whatever we've done, we tidy something up, we replace something.
Yeah. And even just a conversation, like for some children, a conversation saying, look, that behaviour wasn't good. Like, that's not what we do. That we know that we're not allowed to hit people. Let's try doing this time. It's however it fits that child is the right way. Yeah, love that.
100%, 100%.
Yeah, and again, like we see this, like if I think of one of my children, they have got to points, not recently, but when they were really struggling at school, they've got to a point where they've come home and lashed out, like pulled something off the wall or hit me or done something which isn't their usual behavior. And then it's that pressure that they have on themselves because they've done that, and then they feel bad, and there's so many things at play. And for people that don't understand, it's easy for them to say, oh, that isn't acceptable behaviour. What are they doing? You don't do that. But actually, that's their way of getting it out. And yeah, it might not be the right way, but they need support with that.
Everybody has a limit. Everybody, whether you're neurodivergent, neurotypical, whatever, you have a limit.
Yeah.
When you're neurodivergent, those things, think about it as a cup and like
Yes.
your overloads adding and adding and adding until we get to the top. Things like a bright light can be added in there. Things like a bit of a noise or sudden loud noise can be added in there. Somebody brushing past you when you're lining up for lunch. That it's so innocent and it's
The
nothing.
smell of lunch. Yeah. So many.
And it all adds up. Whereas somebody else might only have a couple of things in the glass,
Yeah.
but such little things have created
Cup
such
of
a big
tolerance.
reaction. Yeah, absolutely. And it's like my son, I've got one that's very inside, withdraws, and one that's very demonstrative and you know exactly how he's feeling and why he's feeling it because he wears his heart on his sleeve and he'll show you. I can't remember what I was going to say now.
It's the same with both my boys. The kind of similar, one that withdraws and then one that's like, here I am and this is the problem. And yeah, I get that.
A lump it.
Yeah.
But I think that's he hurts.
Yeah.
He will fly. He damages most things. But he really struggles. That's what I was going to say. He really struggles to understand other people's point of views. And he really struggles to understand that other people don't know what he's thinking.
Yeah.
So we say that a lot of people say, oh, they're high functioning. I don't like that term.
Yeah.
But so if you walk, you talk, you can toilet yourself and things like that, people expect so much from you. But actually, he really doesn't understand, and it's not through lack of trying, that other people don't have the exact same opinion that he does, whether he's verbalized it or not. And it'll be like, well, I wasn't going to hurt them. So why have I just been told off for doing something? I wasn't actually going to hurt them. I was just pretending. Yeah, but they don't know that, sweetheart. I can't read your mind. You can't read my mind. But in the moment, when you say it to him, he's like, well, no, I can't read your mind. So obviously you can't read my mind. That makes rational sense because it's very logical. But in the moment and every day to day, that doesn't come back in. He needs reminding and remind. That's why early intervention is so.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Not correcting them.
No.
We're teaching them skills.
There's nothing wrong with them, and I think this is the big thing, isn't it? It's like there's nothing, and like you've just said. So I always, when you'll see me sit, I'll go high functioning because that is what comes out so much, and it's seen as though it's sometimes maybe seen as it's less than or it's not as, when actually the mental and emotional exhaustion that comes from pretending to be a certain way and having to function highly is a lot. Like I think about this in terms of, if I think about my nephew and I think about my child, my nephew will absolutely tell you exactly what's wrong, how he's feeling. He will show it. He will have that outburst if he needs to. Whereas my son will want to do that and he'll need to do that, but he'll keep it in. And he'll keep it in. And he'll keep it in. And that's the difference. And then people will say, but he's fine because he's acting that way. And this child might need more support because they're acting this way, but that isn't the case.
Same amount of support, just in slightly different ways.
And I think sadly we are still in that place where if you don't see it, then it doesn't exist.
No,
which is ridiculous.
No, and masking people, I find, and I've heard a lot of, especially in schools, oh well, he just masks. That's not a good thing.
No, just masking.
Masking is not what we aim for.
No,
masking is putting a plaster on something. You've got a massive hole in your butt and you're trying to put a plaster on it. and water spurting out, that emotionally wrecks you.
It
You only
does.
do that for so long before your mental well-being and your physical is destroyed.
Yeah.
Don't aim for masking. Masking is what we should not be doing. We should
Yes.
be able to be ourselves and feel comfortable and safe.
Yeah.
Surely.
And this is the thing, and I have been and can be an expert masker.
Yeah.
And my children, some of them can be as well. And I think that is the difference. Even that term, like I remember having a conversation with one of the teachers, and I was trying to get them to understand what masking is. And I would send emails and get information and things like that. And I would say, when my child's put in this situation, on the inside, they're screaming, they are struggling. It's kind of like this child that is actually showing. And then I remember the comment was, yeah, well, we're not seeing that. And I was like, oh, and that just makes me see that you don't know what it is. And I think, and this is another reason why, like, we have packages where we can go and support and educators so that they can understand and they can see this, because it's real, it's happening, and it can be one of them things that actually helps change a child's life when they understand it.
The better.
Yeah.
I mean, there was an awful statistic. It might be slightly wrong now because my memory, but I think it was autistic people, so children and adults, make up 11% of the suicide
Yeah.
statistic.
Yeah.
As an overall.
Mm.
But no, sorry, got that wrong.
Let me find it so that I can show.
Oh, I think it was 11% of the population are made up of autistic people, but they make up 28% of the suicide statistic.
It says, yeah, so I'm just looking on the National Autistic Society so that we can see, so that we can just share with you. So yeah, no, you was right. So autistic people are at higher risk of suicide than non-autistic people. Figures shows that as many as 11 to 66% of autistic adults had thought about suicide during their lifetime, and up to 35% had planned or attempted suicide. Like,
And that's
how?
because of masking and
Yeah.
not being able to be yourself.
Yeah. And
Really
it says
hurt.
here, so camouflaging or masking is when an autistic person actively hides their autistic traits during social situations in order to be accepted by non-autistic peers. But again, if we come back to this in education, we don't have a child that is just sat there ready to learn, like many are. We have a child that has all of these things that they're working on internally, as well as then having to learn. So that pressure is that thing that really tips them over the edge, the extra pressure. So for some children, they're sitting there looking absolutely fine, but inside they have all of these different things going on. Their uniform is annoying them. There's a smell that's really bothering them. Someone said no to them, or these things that are really building them up, and we're expecting them to just be able to learn and get on with it.
Yeah.
Okay, so in terms of that, if you could say, let's focus this one on education, and we're only allowed to pick one thing here. What would you say one thing needs to change in education?
Understanding.
Yeah. And again,
Understanding.
note how these things that we're saying don't cost the earth. They don't cost extra time, extra money. They don't cost any of that.
Understanding, acknowledging that even if you can't see it, you can't witness it, you don't feel it, or don't quite understand what they're saying, that doesn't make it not real.
Yeah.
That
Yeah, I
doesn't
love
make
that.
it invalid.
Yeah. And for me, mine is being adaptable. So being adaptable, if I think again back to the story that I shared about the little boy, or any other activity that I had, I made sure that I adapted that activity to meet different people. And I know we can all say, like, it's hard, it's not possible, there's so many children in, blah, blah, blah. All of these things, which are very true and very valid. However, we can make changes, and some people do, and it's successful. So make sure that you are able to adapt. And if you can't, get support with that. Look at ways, reach out to people, ask people, I'm really wanting to do this. I want to adapt so that I'm making it inclusive for everybody. What can I do?
Yeah. There's loads of resources out there.
Oh yeah,
Parents will help you, other educators. There's
yeah,
free courses and things to go on nowadays.
love
There's
it.
all sorts of stuff to do. YouTube.
Yeah, yeah, perfect. Okay, well, thank you for joining us. As we always say, please do have a look what we have in the show notes. We have our Facebook group, subscribe to this, share it, and do register for our SEN empowerment sessions. And we will see you in the next episode.
Bye.